Alright, so in this video, we're going to escape New York City on a Lowrider ST. Let's check it out. What's going on, YouTube? FXDLS Brooklyn is back in the building. And of course, we got your girl Jenny with us, out riding the cold. Where we're going is pretty far north of here, so we're going to be riding into the 30s. So we both got our heated gear on and we're both ready to go. And yeah, we've done a lot of tests with this bike so far. A good amount of it has been New York City riding, but I haven't really recorded too much through that. So I'll take y'all as we escape New York City for greener pastures, aka the Taconic, one of our favorite highways up here to ride. Figured I'd start this video at a good like New York City background, like that graffiti over there. But then I was thinking about my old friend Vong Asphalt, and this is the most Vong Asphalt Man in Black background I could find. So I'm sure he'll love this one. And yeah, so a separate video, as you can see, we got Jenny on the back, so we'll definitely be doing some content talking about how this bike is for the passenger. She's on that Saddleman touring step up. As you can see, there is a lot of room there, and again, we'll do a separate video on that seat. Specifically, a lot of you are asking, how does it compare with the SDC Custom? And yeah, man, there's a lot for us to cover, but as always on this channel, we keep things moving, so let's get things started. Let's get on the bike, let's stop playing games, and let's get out of New York City. Woo! Alright.
Yeah, brother.
You ready to ride, brother?
Yeah, brother.
You ready to escape New York City? The FXLR ST, the latest addition to FXDLS Brooklyn's journey on two wheels. And yeah, that would have been a good background. Old Vans mural. Alright, New York City, Brooklyn, on the Lowrider ST. So yeah, there's a lot I could tell you about that. For those of you who don't like me ranting on and talking about this and that, and just like when I get to the point in these videos, I'll just flat out tell you that this bike actually handles urban conditions, New York City conditions, Brooklyn conditions like an absolute champion. And that's a combination of the lightness of this bike and just how easy it is to throw it around, how smooth it is, right? It's also a combination of how well Harley-Davidson has dialed in the suspension on these bikes. So like I said before in a previous video, it's kind of like you're on a magic carpet ride. Oh wait, hold on. Let's pay respect to Salt Mountain. If you come and visit New York, you know, you could skip Broadway, skip Times Square. This is the real New York. Salt Mountain. They don't tell you about that, right? But yeah, so this particular bike absolutely handles these conditions like a champ. And you all know most of the New York City miles I do is Dyna and FXR miles. That's my frame of reference. But the suspension on this bike and the way this bike sits and just the general lightness of this bike is what makes slaying the city streets feel like a breeze on this particular model. So I mean, even before I started this video, you know, this is actually one of Jenny's first times riding as a passenger on this bike. And we were riding down a road around here that they had recently torn up for repaving and construction. So the road was absolutely destroyed. Her first impression was, you know, it feels like we're on bicycles right now with how smooth it is. And that's actually true. Just inconsistencies in the road, potholes, having to avoid things, all that stuff. The bike just handles it so well. And that's a bike with a pretty substantial fairing in the front. So, you know, you got that ST fixed fairing going on, which looks like a lot, especially from this view, but you know, the engineering on that fairing, it's just so damn light. So that's what gives you a bike that is actually quite formidable in the Brooklyn miles, in the city miles. So I was kind of surprised, you know, because when I'm running my Dyna Lowrider S with that retro RT fairing setup and the lowers and all that, I hate riding that bike in New York City. It's just, number one, the motor, it's just excessive for the city miles. You don't need a 124 for city miles. And then number two, it's just a lot of bike to throw around with the RT fairing, with the lowers, with everything that's going on. Whereas this bike, number one, it's easier to throw around. It's easier to kind of just maneuver. And then probably the biggest selling point of why I think this bike is actually really good for the city, which you wouldn't think, is the motor on this bike just burns so damn cool, man. Even in situations where I'm sitting in traffic, this motor is burning real cool, man. And I don't know if that's just a contrast of me just being used to my hot rod motor on my FX DLS, which burns real hot. But you know, even comparing it to my 88-inch twin cam, you know, when I get stuck in traffic, it does, that particular motor is manageable. It doesn't get like super hot or whatever, but it definitely gets hot. But again, I was sitting in traffic on the Jackie Robinson Parkway with this bike, and I just couldn't believe that I wasn't feeling really any heat at all. And performance-wise, the bike was just humming along, you know, whereas some of the bikes, you get them real hot, and they ain't happy, man. You're gonna start to get some shugging, this and that. So yeah, those two things being said, surprisingly, it's not what I expected. The bike performs damn well in an urban environment. You know, I kind of expected it to be like a situation like my Dyna Lowrider S, where, you know, you'd only really want to be riding through the city as a means to an end to get to the highway miles, to get to the twisties. But again, surprisingly, if you needed to do this and that in the city miles, this bike handled it like a champ. And I got no problem ripping this thing in the city. As we escape New York, we got the Kosciuszko Bridge over here. How many times in my videos have I mispronounced that? Could probably go back and find at least like 30 times. You got the skyline, New York City morning. And you got nothing but miles ahead, brother. So yeah, that's my assessment on how the bike is in an urban environment. You all know, hence my name. You know, it's inevitable. I live in Brooklyn, so a lot of my miles are in and around New York City. As much as my favorite riding is definitely usually 100 miles north or more of New York City. It's just a fact of life. You know, if you live out here and you're a biker, you gotta manage urban New York City chaos. And again, this bike blew me away with how well it managed it, you know. Originally, with who I was gonna recommend this bike for was someone who was not doing a lot of urban miles, you know. But now, you know, after testing it the way I've tested it, if you're someone who is riding in the city a lot, you know, with the addition of the bags and with the fact that, dude, this thing has extreme touring capabilities, I don't know, man. You know, for the package that you're getting for $22K, it might be a consideration for you if you are ripping through the city. But then again, I'm also not going to say that if you buy a standard Lowrider S and throw something like a Memphis Shades Road Warrior on there, or even run it naked, you know, obviously that's probably going to be even better. But, you know, from someone who is coming from a bigger retro RT fairing on a Dyna, to me, you know, this bike almost feels like Sportster level throwability. But again, that's from my frame of reference. If you're coming from something smaller, or you're not used to running a fixed fairing, you might have a different feeling, right? So that's for you to decide. Woo! But yeah, the motor just is so damn smooth. It doesn't go anywhere, you know, it just breezes right along. If you saw the video I posted where I was going through all my bikes, you know, just talking about everything I was running in 2022, I did a startup for each bike, and someone in the comment section said that comparing this bike to the other 3 Dynas and FXRs with motorwork and with Fab 28 exhaust, that this bike actually sounded more like a sewing machine. Which is pretty funny, man, because again, that's my fault for throwing this bike in a sound test with all those bikes. Maybe if I had a Fab 28 exhaust on here and maybe a cam in this bike, it would be an equal comparison, but you got to understand the frame of reference in that video, that we're comparing a stock Milwaukee 117, which, don't get me wrong, is not something to be overlooked, but sound wise, you know, it's kind of hard to compare stock pipes to, you know, a Fab 28 exhaust on a bunch of Dynas and FXRs. Alright, but we're gonna keep it moving. You know, we got a lot of miles to clear today, a lot of events. If you have any other questions about how this bike handles the urban miles, y'all let me know in the comment section. Again, I was pleasantly surprised. This bike's a damn breeze to ride in the city. And that's it, y'all. I hope you're enjoying the FXLR ST content. Stay safe, stay low, ride Dynas, ride FXRs, ride lowrider STs, and on that, FXCLS Brooklyn is out.